when it comes to business, man, you got to have tough skin. You got to be able to endure everything, bad, the good, because sometimes, man, that negativity, man, it'll make you want to quit.
I think as a business owner, you have to have some type of ego, because you're going to constantly have people around you saying like, maybe you shouldn't do that, or I don't think that's a good idea. But you got to really believe in yourself and what you're capable of.
Welcome to the Wolf and the Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Curry, alongside my co-host, Dr. John Devereaux.
And we were supposed to have a guest today, but they flaked on us. So we're just gonna have like this little impromptu conversation. I'm kind of glad though, because I was on Instagram this week and I seen two really interesting posts that I screenshot, and of course I want to kind of get your take on it. But before we do, let's go ahead and get into our quote of the week. And the quote for this week comes from one of my favorite authors, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And the quote is, "The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be." Oh. So I figured you would like
bars.
that.
Yeah,
but
bars.
What do you think about in terms of like our destiny, in terms of like, you know, the hand that we have in choosing the person that we become? Like sometimes you hear people say that, you know, you're a product of your environment, or do you think that you're a product of the choices that you make as an individual?
I think I think that's a tricky question, right? So like I think that, you know, your environment does play a part in, you know, your mindset, but I think once you're able to kind of like break free of that type of notion, then it is a sum of all the decisions that you make, right? So I think your future has a direct tie to like the decision that you make today, whether it's good, bad, whatever the consequences is. Like, you got to be willing to make good choices, good consequences, thinking things through in order to have one of those futures that you dream about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, you know, one of my favorite poems is Invictus, and he says, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." So it talks about like, you know, you really do have a hand in how your future looks. I always talk about like, you know, the things that we do today impact our tomorrow. So you got to just make sure that you're doing the things today to make sure that you can have the life that you want to have years from now. Now, of course, circumstances are going to come up, but I think we still have a hand in how things, you know, turn out for us if we're putting in the work, especially like when it comes to like our businesses and things like that.
Yeah, I think especially like when it comes to business, because you can't blame, like when you create a business, you can't say, well, my business failed because, you know, the environment that I put myself in, or the environment that I'm currently in, right? Your business should be able to thrive because of the work ethic that you put in, the time commitment that you put in, and any dedication or sacrifices that you made. So, you know, it's all about, you know, what you put into it to make it succeed.
Exactly. So let's get into these two posts that I came across. And like I said, it was really interesting when I seen them on Instagram. And I was like, I know I got to screenshot this and bring it up on the podcast. So it talks about 6 things that will mess you up. And the first thing is going to be your ego. The second thing is having a bad circle. The third thing is negativity. The fourth thing is following the crowd. The fifth thing is being materialistic. And the sixth and final thing is bad addictions. Now, first off, do you agree with all 6 of those?
Every single one. There's
really?
Not one that
Really?
I disagree with. Yes. Absolutely, man. I think the first one you said was the ego.
Ego.
Listen to me, man. The ego will kill all dreams. And go ahead. What?
No, go ahead, because I want to hear your point, because I'm going to push back a little bit.
No, I think the ego will kill all dreams, especially if your ego is in the way, or, you know, in the way of seeing the potential in your business, right? Like, if you got one of those egos, like, I'm right, nobody's else, you know, I'm right, they're wrong, or whatever. And when it comes to business, you're not always right? And if your ego is the one that's standing in between of, you know, you and making $1 million, you got to check your ego at the door.
So I would add a modification to that. Instead of saying your ego, I would say an unhealthy amount of ego. Because I think as a business owner, you have to have some type of ego, because you're going to
Yeah.
constantly have people around you saying like, maybe you shouldn't do that, or I don't think that's a good idea. But you got to really believe in yourself and what you're capable of. So I think a healthy amount of ego can be
Okay.
good
Yeah.
in business,
Let's.
but an unhealthy one, like you said, to just blindly trust in everything that you believe for yourself, of course, that's not conducive to success.
Not at
But I
all.
think some ego is kind of necessary.
I think yeah, I think all business owners have to have some type of cockiness to them, right?
Yeah.
Not an arrogant cocky, but like a kind of a confidence about them, right? And I think that's what it is. I wouldn't even necessarily would it be ego? Or would it be the confidence that you have?
And see, that's the thing. I think sometimes those terms are used interchangeably. Like you can be super confident in yourself, and people can label you as egotistical. But like I said, man, in some businesses, I mean, you just have to have that blind faith in yourself,
Yeah,
and because you're going to get the negativity from
yeah,
everyone
it's gonna
else.
come.
So I mean, you got to have a healthy amount of ego. But
I
to your
agree.
point, I think an unhealthy amount of it is just going to be detrimental.
Yeah, and another one that I'm interested to hear on your point of view, right, is the bad circles, right? Because I know you and I, because you and I, we talk about it all the time. Like, hey, the network that you keep is going to determine your net worth, right? Like, so that bad circle, good circle, who do you, who comes into your circle, who's allowed there, who's not, how do you protect it? So, what is your thoughts on maintaining a good circle, and what is your definition of a bad circle?
I don't even have a definition for like a bad circle. Well, let me say this. So I would think like a bad circle is just you're hanging around people who are bringing you down or stifling your growth or
Mm,
preventing you from reaching your potential. Now, I do also think that you could be a very driven person and
mm-hmm.
still hang around people who aren't necessarily as driven as you, and that shouldn't impact you. It's
Okay.
like I think we talked about this on one of the other episodes because my friend Amber mentioned this. Amber Crosby, she has a podcast, by the way, and she mentioned that if um, if you're hanging out with somebody, and she used the analogy of like walking together. Like
Mm,
when you're walking with somebody, either you're going to adjust to their pace or they're going to adjust to
mm,
your pace. You start speeding up and you guys are talking, they'll start speeding up as well. If they start
mm.
slowing down, you might start slowing down. So I think it just really depends on how influential you might be or how influenced you might be. But I think like the people that you hang around with can motivate you or, dismotivate you, if that's even a word. I don't think
Yeah.
dismotivate's a word.
we
Unmotivate
gonna
you.
go to. All right, we're gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it. If it ain't
But
no
what,
word, we're gonna put it in the dictionary.
right, facts. But I mean, so what's your take though? Because I know you seem a little hesitant.
No, you know what? It's I think it's as far as like bad circles, like it's like someone who just doesn't add to it, right? Like I think that's like the definition with a bad circle. Someone who's take away from the dream of the collective, right? So if my circle is all compressed of, like-minded people, entrepreneurs, millionaire driven people, then like that's my circle. People that want more. A bad circle is somebody who goes inside that circle and just go against the grain, right? They're always negative. They're always complaining. They have
Mhm.
no motivation. They have a lack of drive. I mean, that's a bad circle because it's not adding to the fuel, to the fire, to the motivation, momentum of the circle, right? It's just taking away. Is draining. So a bad circle is just anything that just goes against what the overall mission is.
So let me get your take on this because both of us grew up in a certain type of environment, and you always hear that you got your day ones. Now,
Hmm.
luckily, like my friend groups, the guys that I grew up with, all of them are pretty driven, and so I don't have this problem. And I believe the same for you. Like all the people that you grew up with, driven. But how do you feel about people saying like you gotta look out for your day ones, and like if you become successful, you still you'll be fake if you don't keep those people around still.
I think I think it's like a catch-22 type of thing, right? I believe that 50%, right? But I also think that some people aren't meant to go where you're meant to be, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
even if they're your day ones, they can stay your day ones, but that doesn't mean that they're they're supposed to be on that journey with you. And it's not that you forgot about them, but it's just that you're on a different path than they are. Just always
Hmm.
stay true, stay loyal, and we're friends. But where I'm trying to go, you know, we just can't go there together. So
That's a good way to put it, man, because I think of like the analogy of like climbing a mountaintop. You know, they always say like it gets colder and, lonelier at the top. But as you're climbing constantly, that air altitude, I mean, that was it like the air quality or whatever is like,
yeah,
reduced. Some people just can't handle it as you continue to go up.
sometimes you don't even got to do nothing at all. You just got to be following your passion and your purpose, and some of those people will fall off along the way.
Mm.
So you don't even have to pick and choose who you want in your circle and who needs to be there, because the people that need to be there, they're going to make it because they're going to survive everything that you had to survive to get there. So
Yeah, man, I agree. So, because we already talked about the ego, we talked about the
yeah,
bad circle. What about the negativity though?
as far as like, what is it, just people shutting you down or what?
I don't know. I mean, because I think in any business, you're going to get that. You're going to get
Right.
people that don't like your product. You're going to get these bad reviews. You're going to
Yeah,
get people who will do. Yeah, I mean, like, I think
yeah,
that just comes with the territory.
absolutely.
But so when we talk about negativity, maybe that could be negativity from people close to you. That could be negativity from people that you're in business with. That could be negativity, even like if you're posting things on social media, you get bad comments or, stuff like that. So what do
I
you
think
think?
I think negativity is going to happen. I think when we had Dion on the show last time, I think you asked him about how do you navigate with like bad comments. It's like, well, I know I'm doing something right, right? Because the majority like like what I do. They like the product that I put out. They like my business or whatever. I think that's the saying that stands for anything, right? You're gonna be criticized. You can't please everybody, right? You're gonna get negative reviews. You're gonna get negative feedback, negative people. But if you're doing what it is that you're supposed to do, that's all that matters. Because the people that you're trying to aim for, trying to get, trying to bring around, they're going to appreciate the hard work. They're going to appreciate you. They're going to appreciate your product. They're going to appreciate all of that. So the negativity is going to come, man. You just got to you got to be strong, and that's the thing about business, bro. Like when it comes to business, man, you got to have tough skin. You got to be able
Yeah.
to endure everything, bad, the good, because sometimes, man, that negativity, man, it'll make you want to quit and cry at home.
So and I'm glad you brought that up because you posted something earlier this week on your
Yeah,
IG and you was like, to be a realtor, you have to have tough skin.
yeah.
So talk about that experience that you had and what made you post that because it had to be something like if you went to IG
Well,
immediately after.
because in realtor, like being a realtor or an investor or anything in real estate business, you gotta have tough skin. Because what happens is you gotta be able to deal with, people cursing you out, right? People yelling at you, things not going your way. I mean, you got to be able to endure days that you go without, getting paid. You got to have tough skin in general, man. You got to be able to stick it out because it's hard. And from my experience, man, it was that, people yell at me all day long, you know. I had a situation with another realtor, man, and he's yelling and he's yelling, he's cursing, and I'm not that type of person. I always keep my cool. And I could have let that get to me, but I had a frat brother who told me, man, if you're going to be in business, you got to have emotional stability.
What?
Uh,
Hey, yo, say that again. Bring
you
that
know,
back.
he, I had a frat brother who used to tell me, man, we used to talk about business all the time. And one of the things that stuck with me to this day, he said, if you ever want to be successful, you got to have emotional stability. And for me, dude, that resonated so much on so many levels. So whenever I get in a situation where I let my emotions get the best of me, I sit back and I'm calm and I analyze the situation. You got to be able to think things through because the worst thing you want to do is make a decision off of your feelings and not off of,
Hmm.
rational, facts or whatever.
Man, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree any more with you than what you just stated. Like, I think that is key to be able to handle like the negativity that comes, and to have that emotional stability. It's like this old saying is like, you're never as good as they say you are, but you're never as bad as they say you are too.
Right.
The truth is
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle somewhere. Um, but I remember I had this job back when I was like 17, 18, working at a call
Hmm.
center. And I think that's where I learned to be able to control my
Yeah.
emotions, because we used to just randomly call folks and, completing applications for like credit cards. And I remember one time this guy was on the phone just letting me have it, calling me every name under the sun, calling me
Right.
all type of derogatory remarks and everything. And like it was in that moment where I was like, okay, I got this. I was like, man, I'm cool. And then I was like, man, that's
Yeah.
making him more frustrated that I'm calm and
Yeah.
collected on the other end of the phone. But using those same principles that I learned back then, that's what I applied to like my photography business and these other endeavors that I'm in. It's like you never get too caught up on what they say about you. Like
Yeah.
I think we as individuals have like this innate response to kind of look at the negatives, and those negatives trump all the positive things that people say.
Yeah.
As a professor, at the end of the semester they do evals, like students do evals and they can leave comments. And I remember early on in my career, like I could have like 10 really good comments, but one person can say something and it's like, I don't agree with that. That's not me. And that was what you would kind of focus on for like weeks on out. And it's like you can never give too much voice to like those negative things if they're saying it just to be negative. Maybe they just didn't have a good experience. Maybe they didn't apply themselves, so they try to take it out on you.
Yeah, I think Dion made a great point last week when he was
Hmm.
like, the way that you filter out a negative person is when they don't have anything, they don't have a solution to the
Exactly.
problem, right? So if you got a negative person that says, "I don't like this, I don't like the way you do that," it's a negative, thing. But if you got somebody who says, "I don't like the way you did this, you could do this better," then you have somebody
Exactly.
who's, kind of what would it be like, constructive criticism.
Constructive criticism, yeah. Yeah, that was a good point too. And like for somebody like, Dion, and I really appreciated him saying that, because he says like, he goes through and reads like all of his comments. And like if you got 90,000 followers, it's like, you know, even though the most of it is positive, but just a few sprinkles of that negative stuff, like you really do have like to have that what did you say, emotional stability.
Emotional stability.
You
Yeah.
gotta have it. You gotta have it. Now let's look at this other one. So we talked about so far the ego. We talked about um, having a bad circle, dealing with negativity, and this next one's kind of interesting, like following the crowd.
Mm.
For you as a realtor, and I mean we can even take this back to photography as well. How do you go about forging your own path and kind of doing
Mm.
things a little bit different? And this was goes back to a conversation that you and I had off mic, a few days ago, where you're talking about like some of the practices that other realtors are doing.
Dude, that's a good question. I think, like you were saying, like man, even like for real estate, right? You got a lot of realtors who are still stuck in like the Stone Ages. The
Hmm.
way that they get leads, the way that they look at real estate, it's all prehistoric type of feel, right? And for me, I was like, yo, like they're not doing that anymore. You got to do something different. And I was like, I don't want to do that because I see the results that these guys get doing it that method. And I was just like, yo, I need something different. So I did do my own path. The way I search for leads, the way that, I come across clients is totally different than what my peers do.
Hmm.
And I think it's important because you don't want to follow everybody to water, right? You want to follow your own path and find your own whatever. Dude, you gotta do it yourself. You can't follow the crowd because sometimes the crowd is like a circle, right? This person's following
Hmm.
this person, following this person, and so on. It's like a big circle of people that don't know where they're going, bro.
Exactly. And I think we see that a lot in photography as well. where like for us when we started doing photography, that's when it was kind of like I think it was I would say it was like before the wave hit, and like I think with some of the cameras becoming a little bit more cheaper, you saw a lot of people going into it because it's easier to get, you know, a entry level camera now. But I remember, like for both of us, you know, we would see people who do photography, but they just do everything photography related, and like, you know, instead of just having like a niche that they operated in. But I remember you starting to gravitate towards like corporate photography and headshots and
Yeah.
things like that instead of just doing general, you know, saying yes to any type of event that came up. And like even
Yeah.
for myself, just kind of gravitating towards like the photo booths. I remember I was like, man, it's so many people taking pictures out here. I was like, I don't want to be competing with 50 other folks. So I was like, let me find a different, you know, path for myself, because I think the desire was still there to, you know, engage in photography, but it's just how are you going to execute it in a way that's going to be profitable for you and also sustainable? Because that's one of the big things. Like if everybody's doing the same thing, your business is going to be as sustainable and as the market gets more saturated.
And that's why I think it's important that you find a niche market within your own market, right?
Hmm.
So that it's not like you quit photography. You found a niche market within photography.
Yeah,
So trying to carve out your piece of the pie. So and it's the same way with like real estate. I didn't stop real estate because everybody was doing the same thing. I just found the niche market within the same market and made it happen.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
And on this next one, I'm gonna tell the listeners and viewers how fake and phony both of us are, because
You gotta warn me about that one.
no, because we both said like, you know, we agree with like all the six things on here that will really mess you up. But this
Yeah.
next one, it talks about, you know, being materialistic. I can't act like we
Okay.
didn't just have a phone call the other day
About
talking
the Ferraris.
right.
Well, look, I mean, okay, I, I think that's probably the only one that I don't agree with.
Well,
I
let's
think it's
give a
okay
little
to-
bit backstory too for the listeners and
Okay.
the viewers.
Go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
all right. So the other day, I called Glenn up. Like, yo, Glenn, yo, you seen this show on Netflix? It's about these realtors who are, you know, selling $1 million properties down there in the Hamptons. I was like, bro, can
Yeah.
you imagine like us, you know, selling these multi-million-dollar properties, you know, getting these huge commission checks, and then like, yo, let's go for dinner tonight. Like, you know, you pull up in the yellow Ferrari, I got the red Ferrari. You know,
Right.
we got our wives with us right there, spending like $500 on dinner. You know, just that's the
boast.
materialistic stuff, right?
Yeah.
So even though we said like, you know, we don't agree with it, I don't know. I think at the
Yeah, you
we
know
got a
what?
hint
At the end of the day, I think I want to enjoy life, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not valuing the materialistic stuff, but it is an added bonus,
exactly.
right? So, I mean, who wouldn't want to, live a life? I mean, that's what you work hard for, right? Like,
Exactly.
is to, get everything that you wanted. You worked hard, you planted your seeds. Now you kind of reaping the reward. So, yeah, man, the materialistic is just like a reward, like a trophy.
I think the most important thing though, like even as I look back on our story that we just told, it's all within your budget. Like you can't
Yeah.
so like I don't anticipate on doing that today, you know, with
Nah.
the amount that's coming in. But like if we were making that type of money, it's all about living within your means. And I think that's
Absolutely.
where some people kind of mess up. Is you try to live outside your means, you know, given your
Yeah.
current circumstances. So with the last category that was on here of things that'll mess you up was bad addictions. So, and
Ugh.
I don't think that necessarily has to be like, and this is my personal take on it. It doesn't necessarily have to be like drugs and alcohol.
No.
I think sometimes like people can be addicted to working, and then you just
Yeah.
burn yourself out.
Yeah. I think any addiction, bro, is a bad addiction, right? And like you said, it's not necessarily like, oh, this person's on drugs, so,
Yeah.
all their money is going towards drugs. It could be they probably addicted to risk and taking too many risks in the business. It could be that they're addicted to, you know, to whatever. Maybe it's cars and buying too many cars and
Yeah.
going bankrupt. There's a lot of addictions that people could be addicted to, man, and just blow their whole lifestyle. So,
Yeah, those are some really good ones that you brought up, and I think people tend to always associate addictions with just like the drugs and the alcohol,
Hmm.
but there's so many other things that people could be doing, like you said with gambling, and
Hmm.
that risk is huge. Like
That risk
just
is,
taking on those
yeah,
risky investments, and I mean that's a
yeah.
quick way to just lose it
Dude,
all.
dude, when I was working as a financial advisor, I had a couple buddies of mine who were, like real successful, whatever, man, had their own business. And dude, they used to take on so many risks when it came to investments. And dude, I've seen them go from making, $500,000 a year to like making like $10,000 a year working a part time job now because
Mm,
their risk overtook them able to make a sound decision because they're always thinking about risk reward. The bigger the
hmm.
risk, the higher the reward. And at some point, man, you like you say, you kind of blow out and burn out.
Exactly. And out of these six things that we discussed, your ego, a bad circle, negativity, following the crowd, being materialistic, and bad addictions, which one would you say is the worst?
I think addiction because I think that an addiction will kill a great dream.
Hmm.
So it don't matter how good you are in business, doesn't matter about anything. If you got an addiction, it will always find a way to destroy you.
I think I agree with that because that's the one that's really, really internal and could, negatively impact all the other areas, of your
Yep.
life personally and, work life as well. Having those negative habits will most likely, cause you to
Mm-hmm.
fall off the rails, sooner or later.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, that's interesting. And like I said, this was a very impromptu conversation that we weren't planning
Yeah.
on having, but I'm glad we did. And I'm curious to know what our listeners and our viewers, think on any of these six topics. Are there other ones that you think are even worse than some of the six that we talked about? Let us know. Send us messages or um, respond to the post on Instagram or YouTube. So yeah, we love to kind of get you guys' thoughts as well on this.
Absolutely. That's another episode of the Whooping the Doctors podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Curry, alongside my co-host, Dr. John Devereaux. Whatever you're watching on whatever streaming platform, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below.